Hello friends, I hope you guys are having an awesome Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. I just got done having a really epic breakfast that I made for Isaac for Father's Day. It was eggs Benedict, and I made shrimp and grits and an omelet and a Belgian waffle. It was pretty much everything he asked for, all his favorite foods summed up for him this morning. And just so you know, the secret to a good crispy Belgian waffle, you have to whip those egg whites into a stiff peak form. So if you're ever wondering how to get that restaurant quality of your Belgian waffle, that is the secret. So I saw this video the other night, and this guy was talking about the spices that he has in his cabinet, and he opened up his cabinet and there were like 4 or 5 spices in his entire spice cabinet, and I was like, oh my god, are you guys eating bland food? Well, you don't have to tell me your dirty laundry here in this format, but if you are eating bland food, or if you're just new to cooking, or you want to improve on your cooking a little bit, I wanted to share with you 10 basic herbs and spices that will help you to spice up all of your meals, all of your dishes and recipes that you're making. These are really the basics. Obviously there's tons and tons of herbs and spices that you can choose from, but this will just kind of be a primer beginning. Maybe I'll do another video later on where I can go into all the spices, but me, I love herbs and spices. This here is just like a small sampling of all the ones in my cabinet. This doesn't even include the 10 that I'm gonna do today. So as you can see, I really love to eat flavorful food. My background, just for those of you who don't know me, I went to culinary school in New York City. I went to the Institute for Culinary Education, and I also have traveled to multiple countries around the world. I've taken cooking classes in 15 different countries around the world, so I'm familiar with lots of different flavors from different cultures and different cuisines, and this is really a passion of mine. I love, love, love cooking. As you probably heard from this morning, I was in the kitchen all morning making breakfast for Isaac for Father's Day, and the kitchen is really somewhere that I love to be and making meals for people. So let's dive right into the herbs and spices. What do we have here? So first and foremost, in terms of essential and a basic that you should have, is salt. Yes, salt. And salt is not universal. There are lots of different flavors that you can get from salt, because the flavor in the salt comes from the different minerals that are in the area where the salt is located. So I personally prefer to use a larger flake of a salt, so like a kosher salt or a sea salt. And the reason that using a salt that has a larger flake is important is because when you're seasoning the food, you want to be able to see that the salt is hitting where it's hitting on the food, and that allows you to know which area of the food has been properly salted. If you use regular salt like an iodine salt like Morton's, that's fine, but the difficult thing is when you put it on the food, you can't see it. It really quickly soaks into the food and disappears, so you can't see which areas of the food have been properly salted. So that's why it's really good to use a kosher salt, because it has a much larger flake and it's much easier to see as you're salting the food. If you've ever been at a restaurant and you use a little salt shaker and you try to pour it on, you can't actually see how much salt you've put on, and then you taste the food and either it's too salty or not salty enough. That's why a larger flake will help a lot. And with salt, there is not just one kind of salt. Like I said, there are lots of different kinds. I have a kosher salt here. This one here is a black salt that I brought this back from Iceland. I have another salt here. This is a flour salt, which is more like a finishing salt, something that you'd put at like a salad or something like that. I got this from Croatia. This one is a California sea salt. And then I have these other little salts here that are from Japan. They were a gift to us from a friend who brought them back from Japan. So salt is not just one thing. There's lots of different kinds. I love a Himalayan sea salt. We have some of that in the kitchen as well. So there's lots of different options when it comes to salt. So you don't even just have to commit yourself to one kind of salt, but salt as a category is an essential. You want to put salt on your food. That is really what brings out all the other flavors in the food. So salt is not just about saltiness. Salt is about enhancing all the other flavors that are naturally in your food. So salt enhances sweetness. If you ever had like salted caramel, the salt brings out more of the sweetness. It brings out more of the savory notes in food as well. So that umami flavor that we really, really love, that you'll find in steak and tomatoes and Parmesan cheese. Salt is what helps to enhance all those other flavors. So it's really important to add salt to your food. The next thing is pepper. Pepper, as you can see here, get close enough to the screen. Have some peppercorns. Pepper is another essential, obviously in the United States, pretty much every table that you go to at a restaurant has salt and pepper on the table. Pepper comes in multiple different kinds of berries. So you can find white berries, black, green, red, pink, and they have different levels of pungency. So a white pepper is a little bit more of a delicate pepperiness than say a black pepper. And for me, what I would recommend is getting the fresh berries, the whole berries, and grinding them yourself, because you'll get much more of the pungent peppery flavor than you will if you buy the salt or you buy your pepper already ground. So that is the difference between buying pre-ground pepper and grinding it up yourself. You'll get much more of the peppery flavor, and the pepper will last longer. When you buy your herbs and spices already ground up, they only last for about a year, but if you buy them while they're still whole, they can last you for 2 to 3 years depending on the herb and spice that you're using. So that is the thing to know about pepper. And let's see, what do we have next? Oh, and just in terms of ways to use this, so salt and pepper are pretty much my go-tos for everything that my everyday cooking, like I said. And if say I was going to roast some vegetables, what I would do is I would cut up the vegetables into bite-sized pieces, rub them all over with olive oil, and then I will add salt and pepper, and that's it. And I've served this to so many people who will come over and they'd say, I don't like vegetables, and then I will serve them roasted vegetables, and they'll say, oh my goodness, this is so delicious. What did you do to it? How did you make it taste good? And really the secret is just the salt and pepper and the cooking process, which the roasting creates caramelization in the food, and so it enhances the natural sweetness in fruits and vegetables. And so that's pretty much all it is. And even when I'm making a steak for my husband, pretty much the only thing that I put on that is salt and pepper, and that's all you really need to do to enhance the flavors that are already in the food. You're just trying to accentuate those, not add anything new, which we will also is great to do, and we'll talk more about other spices that you can use to add more flavors, but salt and pepper is really a great way to accentuate what's already in the food so you really taste the flavor of the ingredient itself without adding other flavors. So next up we have paprika. I'll show that one to you. Ooh, making a mess. That's all right, I'll clean it up later. So paprika is a sweet chili that is ground up, and it's more mild than you would typically think of like a chili powder, and you can get lots of different flavors from a paprika. You can get something that's more on the sweet side. It could also be more spicy, or it could be more smoky. So there's multiple different kinds of paprika, and with paprika, what I love to use this for, I put it in a lot of different things. It's one of my favorites in terms of spices, but for paprika, something that it works really well is in a rub. So if you're doing any kind of marinade or rub for meat or poultry, paprika is a really good accent flavor that works well with a lot of other flavors. I also love it with eggs. So if you're making like deviled eggs, you sprinkle paprika on top. Even if you're making scrambled eggs, or you're making some kind of salad, like an egg salad, chicken salad, tuna salad, paprika works really well in all of those. So this is another really good one. Let's see if I had any other lists of things in here. Oh, also works really good in cheesy dishes. So if you're making like macaroni and cheese or some kind of pasta, paprika is a really nice accent because it has sometimes the smoke or the spiciness that works really well with cheesy items. So paprika is really good for that, and I would definitely include this as an essential in your cabinet. The next item is garlic powder. And garlic powder is one that is absolutely a go-to for me in my kitchen. I use garlic powder on pretty much everything. And the nice thing is chopping up garlic and mincing it, it can take a little while. So you can use garlic powder in pretty much anything where you would put the flavor of garlic, but you don't want to necessarily go through the process of chopping up garlic. The garlic powder can be a really easy go-to. So like I was talking about roasting vegetables, garlic powder is a really, really good one for that. One of my favorites is to put it on roasted like root vegetables like potatoes or turnips. Those kinds of things taste really, really great with a garlic flavor to it. So garlic powder is one that I use pretty much all the time. Anything that you like a garlicky taste in, pastas and soups, it works really well in those as well. Stews, garlic powder is one that you can use pretty much anywhere. You can't go wrong with the garlic powder. I have this huge thing of it because I use it a lot. The next one is ginger. Ginger is another great flavor that I love to add to a lot of different dishes. And ginger, you'll find it a lot in Caribbean dishes. You'll find it in a lot of Asian dishes as well. So this is a good one to have in your home if you might be cooking and trying recipes from other different cultures, like from the Caribbean or from Asia. The thing with ginger, it can be used in both sweet and savory dishes, which is a really cool thing. So if you're making like chickens and stews and stuff like that, it works really well. But also if you're making something like a custard, or if you made homemade ice cream, if you're making chocolate desserts, those are also really good with ginger. Ginger is nice because it's versatile. It can go both sweet and savory, like ginger snaps or gingerbread cookies. So you can see ginger can go both to the sweet side, but it can also work really well if things like, you know, pad thai that have a really strong ginger flavor to it, or a ginger chicken, those also work really well with ginger. So this is a great one to have because, like I said, it's versatile. I really love ginger with fish. So if you like to eat fish or seafood, ginger is a really great flavor to pair with those kinds of things. Oh, and also my go-to for using this is if you're making cranberry sauce. I know probably not eating cranberry sauce right now, but when the holidays come around, most of us love to have cranberry sauce. Ginger is a really great addition. So if you are making homemade cranberry sauce, adding it in there, or if you're buying the pre-made stuff, adding a little teaspoon of ginger can really kick it up a notch and make it taste more homemade. The next one is cumin. Show that on the camera. Cumin is a spice that works really well with chicken, with gamier meats as well. So if you like venison, or I love it with lamb. Lamb is it's really great with lamb. It works really well because it has a very earthy flavor to it, and it adds a nice depth to the food that you pair it with. It's common in Indian food as well as Mexican food, Middle Eastern food. So you'll find that in a lot of recipes from those parts of the world. So if you are planning on cooking something, like I said with the ginger, if you are going to cook Asian foods, ginger is really great. If you're going to cook anything from the Middle East, North Africa, Mexican food, you're going to want to make sure you have cumin in your cupboard because that more than likely is going to be called for in those recipes. And this is another one that goes really well with rubs. It blends with lots of other flavors. If you're going to do a marinade, cumin is a great one, like I said, for chicken and the gamier meats. Love that one. The next spice, we're moving a little bit off to the sweet side of things, ones that pair a little bit more with sweeter flavors, and that is cinnamon. Ooh. So cinnamon is one we traditionally think of, obviously, for lots of sweets and desserts. If you got cinnamon rolls, if you are making French toast, all sorts of pastries pretty much have that delicious cinnamon flavor to them. So this is a really good one to have on hand if you like to bake. But also cinnamon is cool because it can also work in some savory dishes as well. You'll find it in some of the savory dishes for cultures like Indian food and Middle Eastern, and it works well with the cumin flavor. This pairs really well with the one we just talked about, cumin. So cinnamon is another good one because it's versatile. It can go both to the savory side as well as to all the sweet dishes. It pairs really nicely with a lot of different fruits. So if you want to make a really simple dessert, do mixing together fruit with water or wine and cinnamon sticks and a little bit of sugar. You can boil those and you can do like a poached apples or pears, plums. I just made last week a really delicious reduction of cherries and plums, and then I put that on top of some portobello mushrooms, topped that with walnuts and some feta cheese, and put them in the oven to roast, and that was absolutely delicious. So that using the cinnamon really can up the flavor in a lot of those dishes. The next one we have is this one here is, what is this? This is nutmeg. And I put that next to cinnamon since cinnamon and nutmeg often go together in a lot of the things that we eat. And nutmeg is another one that works really well in sweet dishes. So a lot of the things that I just mentioned with desserts, breads, cookies, all sorts of, let me see, what else did I have listed here? Cobblers, cakes, breads, custards. Nutmeg is a great ingredient for all of those. You'll definitely be a go-to and you'll use it up. I have barely any nutmeg left in my container. As you can see, it's gotten eaten quite quickly, so need to replace that one. And also it's a key ingredient in pumpkin spice, so if you're making all of those holiday treats, you'll use lots of nutmeg. Nutmeg is also a key ingredient in a bechamel sauce, which is the cream-based sauce for a lot of like creamy pasta type of dishes. So that's another one to have on hand if you are making savory dishes. So nutmeg goes, again, both ways. And also, what I really love nutmeg for is using a dash of it in hot chocolate. So you're making hot chocolate, adding a little bit of nutmeg on the top really just takes it over the top. Love that. The next item is cayenne pepper. Cayenne pepper adds a kick of spice to any dish. It really actually brings the spiciness. Excuse me, for me, regular pepper doesn't really bring spiciness. The paprika doesn't bring a spiciness for me. Some people might experience spice, but if you are a person who likes spiciness and you like pepper and you like that pungency, then you definitely need to go higher on the Scoville scale into something like a cayenne pepper. And cayenne, like I said, will give you that little bit of a kick, and it's really great in a lot of different things. It works well as with the other ingredients for a marinade or a rub that you might put on steak or ribs. If you're going to put it on chicken, it really works well in a bunch of different areas. It can pair with pretty much any kind of meat that you want to add an extra bit of spice to. I really love putting it in pasta and rice dishes as well. And cayenne, you can add it earlier in the cooking process if you want it to kind of mellow out over the course of cooking, and so you'll get less of the spice, versus if you add cayenne towards the end of the cooking process, you're going to get more of that flavor and it's going to be spicier. So that's one way to also temper the spiciness of any dish if you're adding spice to. If you add the peppery hot elements earlier in the cooking process, more of the pungency will cook off throughout your cooking, and then at the end your dish won't be as spicy. Let's see. And our last one, we actually are moving into the realm of herbs. So pretty much everything else that we've talked about today has been a spice. The spice are like seeds and berries and barks, and herbs are the leafy parts. So the last thing that we have are thyme leaves. Thyme for me is my go-to herb. I love thyme. It works so well with a lot of different flavors, and things like lemon it works great with, garlic, fruit, ginger. It works delicious on meats. When I'm making potatoes for like a roasted potato, if you want kind of like breakfast potatoes, throwing some thyme on there, garlic powder, salt and pepper, that combination is absolutely unstoppable. Super delicious. I absolutely love thyme. It also is great for flavoring soups and stews. If you toss some of that in there, you'll definitely be able to tell the difference. It's a different maker in terms of the flavor that you get. So I love thyme, and I like fresh thyme, but I may not always have it on hand, so when I don't, I will always turn to the dried thyme. And the one thing to know about the difference between using dry herbs versus fresh herbs is that you will need less of the dried herbs, because the dried herbs are more concentrated. So if a recipe calls for fresh herbs, more than likely you can half what it's called for if you're going to use a dried herb instead of the fresh herb. So just so you know that. And the other way around, if it calls for a dried herb and you only have fresh, then you would use more of the fresh herb in order to make up for the difference in concentration. So this one also pairs really well. Thyme pairs really well with sweet flavors as well. Thyme is from the Mediterranean, so a lot of other things that are from the Mediterranean it pairs really well with. So think pomegranate, apricot, figs, like I said, lemon, apples, grape is another thing that it pairs really well with. It's key in Caribbean food, Greek food, Italian food. So if you're making foods from different parts of the world, thyme is another one that is great to have on hand. And I think that are all 10 of the spices that I went through. So just to recap what we talked about today, I think spices and herbs and spices are an absolute essential for making sure that your food is not bland, that it's really delicious and tasty, and it's really super key for getting all of the nutrients. And eating healthier food is making sure that it actually tastes good, because more than anything, we want food that tastes good. So if you've been trying to eat healthier food and you're like, oh, I don't want to eat broccoli, it tastes disgusting. I totally understand, because for a long time I hated broccoli too, and then I realized it wasn't the broccoli, it was how the broccoli was made. So you definitely want to make sure that you know how to flavor the food so that you can enjoy all of your meals. So what do we have here? The 10 herbs and spices. Number one, first and foremost, salt. Always make sure that you have salt on hand. Number two, the one you want to have with you, peppercorns. Number three, paprika. You want to make sure you have paprika. Number four is garlic powder. Number five, ginger. Number six, we've got our cumin. Number seven, cinnamon. Number eight, we've got nutmeg. You can see that in there. Number nine, we've got cayenne pepper. And number 10, we have our thyme. Thyme is our only herb, but it's a very, very good one. So I hope that helps you guys if you are trying to stock up in terms of the herbs and spices and flavorings that you have at home. If you have any questions about how to work with any of these spices or other herbs and spices that you either are curious about using, or you may have picked up something and it's sitting in your cupboard and you're like, how do I use this thing? What do I have cardamom for? What do I use fenugreek? Why do I have this random spice here sitting in my cupboard? Or I used it for that one recipe and then never used it again. Now it's sitting here. Why do I have star anise? Yeah, I also have a lot of star anise in my cupboard. So I totally understand, and I would love to give you some recommendations on how to use up those herbs and spices with some recipes. This has been super fun to share with you guys, and I hope to do it again very soon. So again, if you have any questions, just let me know, and I hope you have a wonderful Sunday. Enjoy your Father's Day if you're celebrating, and have a great week. Bye guys.